Thank you.
Well, we're going to turn now to the indoor news. While most of the news this past week did focus on the weather, one big story that didn't get much play: Congress raised the debt limit, and they did it without a big fight. House Speaker John Boehner cleared the way for passage in the House. Republican leader Mitch McConnell maneuvered around a potential filibuster led by Ted Cruz and got it through the Senate. Well, we're joined now by former Republican Senator Jim DeMint, who heads up the Heritage Foundation. He's also the author of an upcoming book, Falling in Love with America Again. Well, Senator, the good thing for us about this storm is you were going back to South Carolina.
Right.
You couldn't get there. So
I'm glad to be here in person.
You're here with us. Well, let's talk about this. Now, what are you and the Tea Party folks are going to do now? John Boehner cleared the way for getting this done. This was not something Tea Party folks were looking to do. And are you going to try to topple John Boehner now, the Speaker of the House?
I'm amused when folks talk about the Tea Party. This is just millions of Americans who are concerned about spending and debt, and thousands of little groups. So they're not a political party, and they don't speak with one voice. But I think a lot of folks who believe in limited government, less spending and debt, are concerned that under this president we've had more debt than any president in history. It's very possible that by the end of his term that he would have allowed more debt than all the presidents before him combined. So a lot of us are wondering, how long can this go on? It was a defining vote this week. I think it showed that all the Democrats in Congress were completely willing to give the president a blank check to borrow whatever he wanted. Most of the Republicans weren't. But the Republican leadership, Bob, has figured out either they give the president all the money and debt he wants, or he's going to close the government down and blame it on them. So I think they did what they thought was the only thing they could do. And frankly, the way it's been reported about the vote in the Senate, actually the normal rule is it takes 60 votes to move to a final vote, what they call cloture. And I think several members, including Ted Cruz, were simply asking, let's keep the normal rules here. And that didn't suit some folks.
Well, it didn't suit Mitch McConnell, who was the leader, because by forcing that to a 60-vote vote, it meant that a lot of Republicans who maybe didn't want to vote for this had to vote for it to get the filibuster broken, including Mitch McConnell. So Ted Cruz put his Republican colleagues in a tough spot there. Well, over in the House, John Boehner, some people said, really did his members a favor, because he let the Democrats pass this, and a lot of Republicans that knew it was going to happen didn't have to vote for it.
He still had to get 20 some odd Republicans to vote for it. But the reason there's a 60-vote rule in the Senate, and the reason Republican leaders fought so hard to keep it for nominations, is it requires some bipartisan working together to pass something. And the debt limit and just giving the president a blank check is an important vote. And to say we're going to waive the rules to make it easier, if Ted Cruz hadn't required the standard procedure, there are several others who would have.
Let me just ask you this, to get back to the question I asked you in the beginning. Were you and the folks that you represent and that you raise money from, what about John Boehner? Mm-hmm. Has he served his purpose? Should somebody else head up the Republicans in the House?
Well, I got out of the Senate, so I didn't have to make those kind of decisions. And really, at the Heritage Foundation, we're not involved with candidates and elections and what goes on internally, so I'm not going to pretend to suggest who should.
But I mean, didn't you form the Senate Conservative Fund, which has raised money that has been used against some Republicans?
Well, I'm proud of what the Senate Conservatives Fund has done, but I haven't been involved with that in over 2 years. And so I'm really not familiar with what they're doing in this election cycle, and I've made
But it's your people that are running it, aren't they? Didn't they all used to work for you?
They're not my people. They're their own people, and they're supported by folks all over the country. But at the Heritage Foundation, our job is to unite the country around a set of ideas. So we're less involved with really trying to cram anything down the throats of congressmen and senators. But we're on a campaign now, Bob, to unite the country around some core ideas that'll make our country stronger and life better. And that's our whole emphasis. And so I'm not involved with any political group now.
Well, are you satisfied with Republican leadership in Washington right now?
Well, I will say that a lot of us as conservatives don't feel like we're well represented in Washington right now. And I think a lot of Americans, regardless of political labels, feel the same way. I hear it all over the country. And I think that's why you see a stirring around the country. Frankly, people are less interested in the label of Republican and Democrat, and they're tired of that. But they will unite around some principles that will give us a stronger economy, a strong society, a strong America. And those are the things we want to talk about. America's not nearly as divided as it looks like they are in Washington.
Well, it looks like to me that the Republican Party, there has been a split, though. Establishment Republicans on one side, Tea Party folks, and a lot of rather conservative people on the other side, including you.
It's always been that way. Reagan was an insurgent. He was shaking up the party. And there's always that pull in Washington to move towards the establishment, all of the K Street lobbyists and all the interests who want something, and to respond to people outside who are saying, hey, we want a limited government, and we want more decision making ourselves. And that's really the key right now, is for Washington to let things go. You see many states, like you see in North Carolina, we heard from the governor this morning, are doing great things with their taxes and school choice. And that's the kind of thing we're working on all around the country.
All right. Well, Senator, we thank you for coming by.
Bob, it's good to see you again.
And we'll look forward to see how this goes. Hope you get home.
Thank you.
All right.